Hey you guys, I'm very excited about today's video because these tips and these mindsets that I'm going to be sharing with you today are things that my husband and I have gleaned through many hardships, and that is figuring out how to work with small children and still get big things done. Whether it is renovations, remodel, home improvement projects, whether it's just work around the house, yard work, gardening, all of those type of things. Wow, you throw a couple kids into the mix and it really changes things up, let's just say. And it can be awesome. It can be wonderful. We've made so many fun family memories of us all working together on things. But wow, there can be a lot of very, very hard moments involved as well. And we still have many of those hard moments. So don't think by me making this video I have it all figured out. These are just some things that I have found to be very helpful and I have gleaned over the past 3 years. Still trying to do things with little kids. So to give you a little bit of a backstory, I'm going to be speaking especially about doing renovations, remodeling, and home improvements with little children, but this equally applies, and we use these exact same things for, like I said, yard work, housework, working in the garden, farming, any of that type of stuff. So hopefully it'll apply to you basically in whatever situation you're in if you have little children, but you still want to do things besides sit with them all day reading them storybooks. So we have 2 little kids. The oldest just turned 3 and the second just turned 6 months. My first daughter, Caroline, or Carrie as we call her, was firstborn. We were finishing up our first remodel. When she was 6 months old, we started working on our second remodel, which is where we live right now. We moved into that when she was a year old. When she was a year and a half old, we bought our third remodel, which is the one we're working on right now, even though we're currently living in the second remodel. So hopefully that's not too confusing. But all that being said, we know what it's like to try and do projects with kids. And so these are some things I hope you find helpful. So this video is going to be broken into 3 simple sections. The first is practical tips for like 1 to 4-year-olds. The second is little things that I have found to be somewhat helpful with babies. And the third is mindsets for parents or for mothers. Also, if you are a mother out there, I know there's so many of you guys who have so much more experience than me with getting things done with small children. So please share any tips, any mindsets, anything you find helpful, because I am all ears. Okay, so let's dive into the first section, talking about practical tips for 1 to 4-year-olds. So these are a few things. The first, involve whenever it is possible. And I do this with housework. We do this at the remodel. We try and find ways to involve our little toddler in anything that we're doing. The next thing, and this really ties in, is giving them jobs for whatever is appropriate for their age. So it might be carry in these little pieces of firewood and set them by the stove. Or, pick up these screws that you dumped out. Things like that, just age-appropriate things. I have found this to be really helpful if Carrie's getting slightly bored or slightly on edge or slightly uninterested in whatever it is that she might be playing with, to just give her a task where it kind of resets her mind, gives her something new to focus on, and by the time the task is done, she's excited to go and play again. So that I've found really helpful. This is another thing, and this is just kind of our parenting style because we really want to raise very independent, self-reliant kids. But that is educating rather than just always saying, no, you can't do that. No, Carrie, you can't climb the little ladder. Rather than saying no to everything and then constantly having to follow up and make sure that she's obeying, educating her and being like, look, Carrie, you can climb the first 4 steps of the ladder. I don't want you to climb any higher. If you fell down, this is what could happen. We try to educate our toddler as much as is possible rather than just making everything a no. And if you hear, my little 6-month-old was talking in the corner. But this kind of ties into the next tip, and that is always explaining the why behind the no. We don't do this with every little thing, but with things that are dangerous, like, oh, there's a stairwell there, and it doesn't have like a railing or something like that, explaining to Carrie, and we've done this since a very young age, look, if you fell down that, you could get so hurt, so I don't want you to go close to it, and that's why. Look, these outlets are very dangerous. Do you know what would happen if you touch those? And being very serious and not being afraid to use reality of what could happen as an example. And I've just found that with all the kind of more dangerous or unchild-proofed areas of houses that we've explained in that type of a way, we've had very little problems with having to go back and be like, Carrie, you weren't supposed to do that, because Carrie's understood. Kids are very smart. She understands if something's actually dangerous. And so she's able to be safely in so many different environments that are not child-proofed or that are at somebody else's place that I don't think a lot of 2 or 3 year olds will be safe with. Explain the why behind the no. I think it's super important in not raising rebellious kids. That's my personal opinion anyway. Snacks, treats, whenever there's slight meltdowns, whenever I sense Carrie's getting really restless, maybe something that she hasn't played with in a while to kind of pull out and refascinate her with, I found just usually gives you a little bit more time to get things done. Especially when Carrie was still taking a lot of naps and she would get really tired and fussy, we would lay out a blanket maybe in front of the stove and put some books on it and give her a snack or her bottle when she was younger and just have her rest for a little while and tell her, you know, for 15 minutes or for 20 minutes or until mommy says, I want you to just rest. And usually she's pretty happy to do that. So now moving on, those are just a few things I find really helpful with toddlers to babies. I feel like I should not be giving tips when it comes to babies because I'm not good with little babies, and yeah. But these are just a few things that have been helpful. Bouncy seats, backpacks, those little things that kind of support them where they can stand up when they get a bit older. Those are all really helpful. Kind of alternating between all 3 of them throughout the day is helpful. Cassie is 6 months old, so she's just starting to get really interested in food. So the little thing she kind of stands up in that supports her has a little tray. So sprinkling out little bits of things she can put in her mouth that are safe, that are not too large, and she can kind of try to feed herself while we're trying to get things done is very helpful. Teaching our kids to sleep around noises has been really helpful when it comes to still getting things done with little kids. And the last thing that I think is most important of all is strategic nap timing. So with Cassie, she usually naps from around maybe 10 to noon, and then she'll get up for a while and then take another nap later in the afternoon. So I really try to schedule, if I'm going to go outside, like the other day I went outside and did a whole bunch of raking and yard burning and stuff. I tried to schedule it around, okay, she's going to go down right about 10, so I'll go out right about then, put her in her bouncy seat, wrap her in her blanket, and she'll sleep for a couple of hours and I can work outside. Or I'll do that with the remodel. I'll leave like right around 10 to go to the remodel and put her in her bouncy seat, and she'll usually sleep for a couple of hours once I'm there, and I'll try and get some work done. She's making fun of me. She's like, yeah, right, Mom, you're not very good. Shh. So then maybe she'll wake up around noon, I'll nurse her, maybe she'll be fussy for a while, so I'll throw her in the backpack while I do stuff, and then she'll usually take another nap maybe 2 hours later. And so I really try to plan a lot of my work with whatever I'm doing based on those nap times and really try to be strategic about it. So those are all my tips for babies. Please share with me your tips. I need to know them when it comes to babies. Okay, so the last thing, mindsets for parents or mindsets for mothers. I really do believe to some extent in the saying, where there is a will, there is a way, because there have been so many things I've thought, oh, once we have kids, I won't be able to do that. Or now that we have 2 kids, I won't be able to do that. But I really want to still do them. And so we really do try and find ways that I can still do certain things, even with kids. And I do think to some extent that saying is true. Right about the time I was going to have Cassie, I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to help on the remodel for months. And within like maybe 4 weeks or so, I was back there again because I really wanted to help. That being said, my second mindset thing that I have found very helpful is to recognize the season that you're in, because there are certain times, although I believe in where there is a will, there is a way to some extent, there are certain times where it is not worth the stress. It is not worth the fussing. It is not worth the crying of trying to juggle a newborn and still do certain things, and to realize that that's okay. And I think it's funny too, because now, having been a mom twice, I realize really how fast those seasons fly by, where it feels like when you're in it, oh, this season is never going to end. I'm never going to be able to go back outside and do the things I want to do, or go back out and garden, or, you know, get my house the way I want it to be. And then it's so funny because I'll just wake up one day and be like, whoa, actually, Cassie hasn't been as hard lately. Like, when did that change, you know? I have found that there are certain seasons that it is not worth the stress. And so my husband and I are constantly reevaluating. I don't think this stage right now that we're currently in really works to bring a 6-month-old to the house. Or maybe the house isn't safe enough to... Or maybe the remodel isn't safe enough to have a 3-year-old running around for a little while because he's working on electrical or something like that. And just to accept that. And I struggle with that. But I have found through many times of trying to force things anyway that it is not worth the stress to myself or to my husband or really to my kids. So recognize the season you're in. That's tip number 2 for the mindsets. And the last one, my husband said this a couple months ago and I thought it was so beautiful. And such a good reminder, and something I need to have like tattooed on my forehead, is that kids are the goal. I think it's really easy to think that the projects, the success, the career, those are the goals. And the kids are holding us back from them, and so the kids are the problem. Rather than realizing, no, the kids are the goal, and all those other things are kind of a complement. They're an environment we can train and raise those children in and teach those children within. And so I think that's a really good reminder that, yes, you have kids in the middle of a remodel. You have kids while you're trying to do yard work or gardening or housework. And everything gets slowed down and it's harder, it takes more time, but it's also, you're also building these beautiful relationships. You're teaching these children these beautiful things. And so I think that's a really good mindset to have, and one my husband and I constantly have to go back to because it's hard not to feel, oh, this is holding me back. This is really hard. This 6-month-old is fussing all the time or whatever it is. And not realizing, you know what, this is a training ground where I have the beautiful chance to train my children lessons, where I get to develop that relationship with them. Big deal if the house takes 6 months longer to finish. Big deal. In the end, I've created a bond and a relationship with my child, hopefully trained them to be more the type of child that I want them to be than I ever could have if I had just put them in front of a screen or hired a babysitter every day, or had been so grouchy and frustrated with how they were distracting me that I wasn't really bonding and making those relationships stronger and those connections stronger with each other. So those are my tips. Like I said, please share if you have any. I would greatly appreciate them. But those are just some things I've found really helpful. My husband's found really helpful. And yeah, the days are harder, the projects are harder, but wow, I would not ask for it any other way. It is so much fun getting to be all together as a family and still work on things and get things done. I am so blessed. And really, since the time I was a young teenager, I kind of fantasized about working hard all together as a family and how much I craved that. And it's so cool now. You are ready for me to be done, huh? And it's so cool now to be in the middle of that season. And yeah, I know it's hard, I know it's a lot of work, but I know these are memories that we're going to cherish our whole life, and we're gonna look back on as old people and be like, oh honey, do you remember those days when we worked with our 2 little kids on the remodel and did the yard work together all as a family? So I know it's gonna be so worth it. So Cassie is ready for this video to be over and she wants me to hang out with her instead. So I should probably go. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it a little bit helpful. And I'll see you next weekend. So bye guys.